Okay, so one of our viewers here left me this link in a message on Facebook, which I am very grateful for because it completely confirms so many things that I cover here on this YouTube channel and the viewers that come to this channel talk about. This is scientific proof that there is an agenda for this movement towards gender fluidity and sexual fluidity. I've covered this in many videos recently. So what this report is from the sort of semi-alternative media outlet Democracy Now! That has a liberal-leaning type attitude. And they do a good job on this report. And it's about this guy, scientist Tyrone Hayes, who is a professor at Berkeley University. And the company that makes this pesticide called atrazine, I believe their name is Syngenta, asked this guy to study the effects of this pesticide, the atrazine causes on frogs. And what he found out was it caused a lot of sexual abnormalities, and it caused male frogs that were originally meant to be male frogs to turn into female frogs. So then Syngenta, that originally hired this gentleman to do this research, when he presented them his findings, tried to suppress his findings. They wouldn't let him publish it, and they tried to discredit him and make him to look like he was incompetent. Now, we've seen this so much with Monsanto and other corporations. When they get studies they don't like, scientific studies, they find ways to block those studies from being published. Now, this was covered in the New Yorker magazine, so this is going into mainstream media. And there were many meetings. It was revealed there were many meetings where this guy was the subject of the meetings, and they were working tirelessly to suppress his findings. So what he basically found was that this was affecting the sexual development and the sexuality of frogs, possibly creating homosexual tendencies, and these side effects would likely be transferred and be applicable to human beings. So human beings would also suffer these same types of things. And these pesticides were being used in public places, golf courses, parks, all kinds of places like this. It was a widely used pesticide. So finding out that this causes sexual abnormalities, and there's other side effects as well, and this is being used where young children are playing, where people are having recreation, and this was going to hurt them in some way or another. So this could lead to lawsuits and all kinds of other things, and yet they aren't pulling it off the market. They're still using this pesticide. So you got to kind of connect the dots here with all of this other information that I talk about here about them moving towards a social movement. What I've covered up to this point is a social movement to effeminize men and to make women more masculine. I've talked about this in so many different ways and in so many different videos. And on the social part of this, the social war, we know that the term gender fluidity became a catchphrase, a huge catchphrase in 2015. So much was made about this Bruce Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner switch. Again, just like what the frogs are going through, where something that was originally created a male is being turned into a female. And so now you have actual chemicals being used in public places that cause the physical equivalent to gender fluidity. Also, the term sexual fluidity became a popular phrase in 2015. And these are social attitudes that they are clearly pushing. And now they are doing physical things. Now, many people are aware that BPA, which is leaching into the environment, into human beings through all of these plastic containers and things that we have. And now, of course, it's in our oceans and all this stuff everywhere. When we drink water out of a plastic bottle, it causes phytoestrogens that create a level of turning men more effeminate. So this is just another way, that there's these physical things that they have placed in our environment. And there's also all this evidence that on a social level, they are moving towards this. I don't know, I've made like 15 or 20 videos about this, that they're pushing this idea of you're not what you're born as. You're whatever you feel like. And now there's physical ramifications where physically people are being made into the opposite sex or being pushed into through a chemical reaction that people will have a tendency to be homosexual from the chemicals that are in the environment. So think about that. So this is something where you're getting away from nature totally by man-made, manufactured poisons. People's gender is no longer a set thing, and then their tendencies, their sexual appetites are going to be reversed in some way. I wanted to add a few more things about what this scientist Tyrone Hayes said happened. At first they told him they wanted him to manipulate the data and make it more favorable to their situation. So that's something you got to realize. Well, when people talk about science as being something that is this concrete thing, the people that believe in the religion of science, we find time and time again that the people who are paying the scientists get the results they want, and he wouldn't do that. So before they told him not to publish the reports, first they tried to get him to basically fudge the results. So this is another confirmation. Always people say, well, scientists say, yeah, well, scientists are human beings that can be bribed and threatened and all kinds of different things to warp their results based on the money that they're receiving and the pressure that they are getting from their university and the corporations that are funding them. And even it escalated to this gentleman being threatened by someone who worked for the company. The company hired other scientists to fudge data and refute this guy's findings, Tyrone Hayes' findings, and then they sent thugs to his presentations to disrupt them. And one of the company employees whispered into this guy's ear, threatened to have him raped, threatened to have his wife and children, bad things happen to them, saying, they're all alone, who's protecting them. So they were threatening physical violence. And you have to understand this is beyond money, because all of these types of chemicals could result in lawsuits. When you put something out like this, and these findings are going to be out there in the ether, and someone could say it shows this company knew these things happened. So in terms of lawsuits, in terms of financial liability, it's in their best interest to pull this stuff off the market. And yet they fought so very hard to continue this poison for going out there. So you got to wonder, what's the real agenda here? People say it's over money. Yeah, but really financially speaking, it was in their best interest to pull this stuff off because they have monster lawsuits, and just the way that this would affect their stocks and all these types of things, it would be financially devastating. So there's another agenda here, and that agenda is about getting all of these poisons that cause sexual deviations into human beings, into the human populace. And then he went on to say that they call this the gender-bending chemical or pesticide, because what happened was you had naturally genetically male frogs that started developing female tendencies. Their voice box changed. A lot of them developed ovaries and became female frogs that were laying eggs, and then they engaged in homosexual behavior and all of these types of things. So they were male frogs, and they went through different layers. Some of them turned completely into females, some of them turned partially into females, and all of them showed a tendency to act like females and then engage in sexual activity with other male frogs. So you can see this is exactly the kind of thing that they're pushing on a social level. I suggest everybody watch this video. It's clearly something that has happened. This is not some sort of a hoax. This is not some sort of a internet myth. This is a real thing that happened. The suppression of truthful scientific data, and the fact that a chemical that's being used in public places has the same effect as the social movement of gender fluidity. It's the physical effects of changing one sex into another. Also, it suppressed testosterone. And this is something I've covered in many of these videos with clones. They have ways of suppressing testosterone. They're doing this. There's young children that start showing that they have tendencies of being the opposite sex of what they were born. And they start giving them hormone blockers at an early age. And then they start giving them the opposite type of, they give them estrogen if they're male, or they give them testosterone if they're female. So there's this hormone replacement type situation going on in very young children. So we have this. There's a social agenda here, and then there is all of these chemical things that they're using. And if this was something that they were truly concerned about, and every town and every city would say, stop spraying that stuff on the golf courses. We don't want our children to turn into the opposite sex. We don't want our male children to have to suffer from these poisonous chemicals. But this isn't even happening. So think about this. We see the widespread social agenda, and now we see that they are doing things chemically. And it's just more of this movement towards depopulating the planet and moving into this sort of brave new world reality that's unfolding around us. So I'll leave a link in the description box. It's well worth watching. And there's probably a lot of these other types of chemicals. We see it now. Men and women are tending to move towards their opposite sex in one way or another. And this is something that is clearly backed by the powers that be on a lot of different levels. They're fighting this war in multifarious ways. So there's a scientific way and there's a social way, all these types of different things. All right, so I'll probably do a follow-up video on this in the future, but it gives very convincing scientific data and a story that backs something that we know that they're pushing socially, and they've been doing this for a number of years.